are joining in on this podcast episode in particular. It is going to be a powerful one. So I'm covering two seemingly sometimes taboo topics to talk about, which is money and miscarriage. And it's the spiritual perspective of both. So to give you a little bit of background, I had two miscarriages over the course of 6 months very recently. And so I cover how I was really able to heal during that experience of total despair, of total frustration, of anger, of just all of the experiences of grief that it brought me through, and how I was able to get to that other side. So it's a very powerful discussion where I share the spiritual perspective of miscarriages, right? And I don't hear as many people talking about this. And this was my saving grace to really better understand what was actually happening in this process, because it was a very, very traumatic experience both times. And because I was able to really get down into the roots and let myself feel that, I was able to heal it in a way that was so transformative. And so I'm really grateful to share my experience with you and how I got to the other side. And simultaneously, in this conversation, so this is actually a podcast interview where I was being interviewed on another podcast by Olga Miller. So she has this beautiful podcast called Ordinary Talks with Extraordinary Women. And so we're bringing in this beautiful episode to gift this back into this community so that you can start to hear my perspective on my own experience with miscarriage and simultaneously my spiritual perspective that I've channeled around money, because I believe that it is our birthright to receive the gifts that we've been given and give them back into humanity and be incredibly abundant in the process. Because when we receive the abundance for the gifts that we were given, we can then abundantly pay other people for their gifts. So I can't wait to dig into both of these topics. They are life-changing, truly. Like what I channeled about both of these has transformed my life, my business, and I would not be the same person if I didn't go through the tragedies that I went through, the deepest levels of pain that I went through. But I'm here to tell you that it can be alchemized, and you can absolutely get to that other side and allow yourself to not only alchemize that pain, but to simultaneously become incredibly prosperous, doing the thing that you love most in your heart and soul, the thing that you came to give back to humanity, for it to deeply impact all of the souls that are here, and for this to be your ultimate legacy that you leave behind. So I hope that this is as empowering as it was for me to just simply transmute these messages and transmute this pain and allow this to really be given back into this space. So I'm so grateful. There is no mistake that you are here today to dig into these really powerful topics. I can't wait to see what you receive from these. And without further ado, let's dig in.
Welcome, 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 welcome. I'm so excited to have you on this show, Ordinary Talks with Extraordinary Women. And why is it that you're here? Because I picked up on your energy on one of the courses that I was doing, and it was so wonderful. And then I saw what it is that you were doing. I looked at your profile on Instagram and your website, and it just blew my mind. So I thought we would meet, and then we met, and just like, he was just firecrackers. I mean, your energy is through the roof. But then you're so eloquent and your wisdom just shines through. And I could also see that it took a lot of internal work, a lot of reading, a lot of exposure to a variety of things. And nobody knows what you do. So why don't you tell us?
Everyone's like, who is she talking to?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Christina Deering. I'm a shaman healer and an intuitive business coach. And so I really support people in remembering their divine purpose for being here and really activating that part of themselves. And that's going to change as they evolve too. So taking the pressure off of just one divine purpose. We have multiple purposes for being here, but actually starting to live in alignment with your purpose, with your soul. And then what's beautiful about that is that it allows you, as you begin to build that, you're able to then quit maybe a job that you don't like or a job that you hate, and then make a lot of money doing what you love. So really being able to prosper from this place of like deep purpose, but like rooted purpose in your soul has been the greatest gift, because it's something that I activated within myself, where I was like, I just really feel like something is missing and I feel really lost. And then I started to slowly find my purpose. And then I realized I could make money doing what I loved. And I was like, Oh my God, I feel so free. Everyone gets to do this. And so I was like, I get to like teach people and share with people how to actually fast track and get to a place where they really do get to be compensated doing the thing that they love most in the world and then letting it evolve as they evolve. So that's a little bit about me. And then I can go deeper into any of those areas too. But that's kind of it in a nutshell.
It's such an interesting concept, I find. So usually people do either the money mindset
Mhm.
or the spiritual mindset, the divine purpose, but you found the golden middle.
Mhm.
Can you walk me through the journey a little bit? How did you arrive there?
Yeah. So I think they all go hand in hand. Like, I really truly believe that we were born with these gifts. Like, if you think about when you were a child, and for me, those gifts were like singing and things like that, like creating stages where there wasn't one. Like, I would just create my own stage. I'd pull the hairbrush out. It just felt so fun to be able to just create, yeah, exactly, my own stage. Yes, exactly. And here we are on a podcast using microphones and activating those gifts again. And so I think that's what's so cool about all of this is it just feels like we're given these gifts from source, from God, from whoever you desire to believe in. And what I have come to know is we're given these gifts to give them away. And by giving them away, it's how we're of service to the population, how we're of service to other souls. And so, what's really beautiful about being of service is that we get to be divinely compensated energetically back and forth because that's what we're giving to other people. So, I really feel like those go hand in hand because we're activating the parts of our soul that most desire to give something that's so soul aligned with us. And then someone gets to receive it in a way that feels so good for them. And then you have that beautiful energetic exchange that happens where it's like, they're receiving this incredible service that's straight from the soul, and then they're giving back into the space either monetary value for it or whatever it is that the energetic exchange is. And so it's just really playing with the energetics of you were given these gifts to give them away and to fill yourself back up with that as well. And so I really believe that they're all so divinely connected.
This is so profound, to be honest with you. And I know that starting with myself, and I know a lot of people who are givers, they struggle with accepting money.
Mhm.
So I am still working on it. I would still rather do things for free, which has been really hurting my business. But I feel that there is this energy, what you said with money, and that you need to arrive at a certain point where what you were saying, where money is not corrupt or
Mhm.
dirty, or we're taught to think oftentimes, and people with money, they're just like, but what you're teaching is that, and I think it's fascinating that your divine purpose, and you give the energy and you get the energy back, and there's beauty in it as you see it.
Mhm.
How did you arrive at that? Because this is, I mean, it's a profound transformation in the mindset
Mhm.
to to be there. So I'm not there yet. I'm
Mhm.
still struggling. I'm reading all these good money books. So what was the process, if you will?
Yeah, there's a lot there. So I was like very similar like what you were saying where it was like, "Oh, I feel bad charging, I'll just give it away for free." And what I was realizing was that was keeping me in a job that I hated because I was getting compensated in a way that felt like it was taking away all my energy. And then I was giving away all the energy from an empty cup too. And then what I realized was my clients, when I was in that energy, weren't getting the best of me. And so this actually, the energetic exchange allows me to land there with both feet, allows me to really drop into the space and give in such a beautifully aligned energetic exchange that they're actually getting this like fully dropped in version of me versus like the version of me that's run down and doesn't have the energy left. And I'm just showing up because I love to do it, but I don't really have the energy to fully create in the space like I could. This allows me to fully show up to the best of my ability to serve that person, and this is actually their energy that they're putting into the portal themselves. So when you think about it, the way that you would show up to a free event is going to be completely different to the way that you would show up to an event that you paid $10,000 for to get the VIP ticket. Like your butt is going to be there 10 minutes early or 30 minutes early. You're going to be fully engaged. You're going to be in the front row. You're going to be taking notes. And you're going to receive so much more from that space because the energy that you put in is what you're going to be getting out. And so that's another thing that I think is really powerful about pricing is like what that actually is the energetic exchange of what someone can give into the space. And that is what they're going to receive from that space. So it's actually a huge disservice when we end up saying like, I'll discount it because of where you're at. Then you're actually manifesting from an old energy of being like, well, if this is the only thing that you can afford, then I'll give it away for free. When you're actually holding them small, you're not allowing them to see what's possible for them to actually put the fire under themselves to show up for themselves in that kind of way. And so the second I started realizing energetics of like how powerful it is on both sides, that's when everything started to change for me. And I started to recognize too, which was the people that are like, oh, I feel bad charging, which was me for a very long time. I realized and I really connected into this affirmation that money in my hands is good for the world. Like I am a person that divinely wants to support other people. I love giving gifts to other people. I absolutely love being the person, my path of least resistance to say absolutely yes. And I want to gift that to you. And so you think about that when I have more of those resources available to me, I can support more and more people and I can be someone's miracle that day in more ways than I was able to before. And so you just think it's just a resource to be able to give from a place where it's like more and more of you. And so it just changes the whole energy around money completely.
It's amazing. You're amazing, Christina. Oh
Thank
my
you.
God. Um, it you seem very centered and
Mm,
very focused, and it's probably not an easy task given the energy that you give to people and how you engage, but also you are a mom and you're an entrepreneur, which is a whole different beast.
mhm.
So you have to take care of all of these, juggle all the balls at once. But you are always, every time I engage with you, you're positive, you're a yes person. You're like, let's make it happen. If this doesn't work out, this will work out. So how do you manage that? How do you stay centered?
Mm. So a lot of different ways. I will say I notice when I'm not. I think that's a really powerful thing to do is to notice when I'm feeling flighty or notice when I'm feeling like I'm in my head and to
How
actually
long,
disrupt it
how long
in the
did it
moment.
take to start noticing? Did you
It
make
kind
it
of
and
depends.
discover?
I think it's a good question, but I've gotten more accustomed to now that I know how much it helps me. I will notice when I'm like, oh, I'm in overwhelm or I'm in my head a lot right now. Okay, let me drop back into my heart. And the way that I do that could be a meditation. That is very grounding for me. And I feel like a lot of times the old version of me would be like, I don't have time to meditate. I'm moving so quickly, But
Yeah.
then I realized it was like I was just taking action versus taking inspired action. And that's what the groundedness lets me do is like instead of just running, I realized, well, wait a minute, I've been running in the wrong direction for 3 days. Like, wait, if I take the 10 minutes to pause and just ground myself, I'm going to realize these 5 to dos can wait. And this one is feeling more heart centered. And this one's feeling most potent to lean into right now. And then it also gives me spaciousness to notice the intuitive hits that I get. So for instance, I'll get an intuitive hit that says, "Hey, I know you're in this Facebook group and there's some times that you show up to the events and other times that you don't because it's a free gift or it's a free group and sometimes you'll lean in and sometimes you don't." But it's giving me the energy to be like, for some reason I need to be in the room today. It's like intuitively I feel like when I give myself that space, it tells me where to go. My intuition tells me where to land. And so I think that's what's really powerful about taking a minute to actually pause and connect back in is going to give you direction so that you're running in the quote unquote right direction versus just running. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's
Okay.
beautiful. I think most of us, just, or a lot of us, are just running,
Oh,
and
totally. Yeah.
it takes away from the purpose. And this is something that I was struggling with for a very long time. And I think this internal work that I've been doing and external work in terms of just reading, and I think we're in complete alignment where you and I are
Mhm.
right now. But what is absolutely fascinating for me, just observing you and listening to you, is that you've gone through some really difficult stuff. You went through a really difficult life event very recently
Mhm.
too. You're so grounded. and you're so full of light and you're so full of beautiful things to say, but you can tell they come from the heart. And I know there's still pain, but somehow you've mastered this art of, I don't know, what did you, can you talk a little bit about that? I don't
Sure.
know how deep you want to go, but you're not just together. You're just light. You're pure light. And I don't know how you do it.
Hmm. So what you're just speaking into, just for the people that are listening. So in the last 6 months, I had two miscarriages, one of which happened like a few weeks ago. And so to share with you a little bit more about how I got through it, honestly, I let myself go to the depths of the pain so that I could actually alchemize it and find the gifts that were underneath it. So for me, what that like actually looked like was when I had my second miscarriage in that 6 month window, I had to cancel all my calls that day because, of course, I needed spaciousness. And I'm so grateful that I can do that and that I have the ability as the person that owns my business and that I'm working with these incredible clients and partners and these people that I work with, that they're all like, please take that time for you. And so I created the time and space to just feel. Like for me, what that looked like was to actually like scream and cry and sob and scream at God for a minute there, where it just felt so wrong. It felt right. Like, why? Just dropping the F bombs left and right and just feeling so angry so that I could move all of the energy that felt like it was moving up and down through me to be able to connect to, okay, what's really underneath this? What's actually coming through here? And so for me, that was like a very intense somatic release that I needed to do because we keep these stories in the cells of our body. And if we don't take the lid off of it and feel it, we're suppressing it. We become depressed. And then it can start to manifest as disease in the body, which to me, it feels like it's just calcified energy in the different areas of the body that we didn't let ourselves express. So if you think about, if you've seen, this is just a strange, like, but tactical example. If you've seen the movie Oppenheimer, if you've seen that movie and the main character, you can tell he's just not speaking his truth. He's really holding back, right? And they don't talk about this in the movie, so it's not a spoiler alert or anything. But for whatever reason, I was really curious about how did he die? And he actually ended up passing away from throat cancer. And I'm like, well, of course he did. He had all of this energy where he just wasn't speaking his truth. And to me, I truly believe that the body is telling the story of the soul. And so I needed to move that trauma out of my body to better understand what was the truth underneath it. So a lot of somatic releasing, a lot of leaning into my community, just being 100% honest about what I needed in the moment, having a healer, having a coach, like just being true to what I needed. I needed that extra special love. And so my mom came over just to give me a hug. And like past version of me would have been like, no, don't drive 45 minutes to hug me. And new version of me, or I guess the latest version of me is like, I would absolutely love to just be embraced right now. Thank you. And so just to hold that space for me and to let her do that, both sides, it was such a gift because she's like, I want to hug you in this moment. Like, I want you to let me love you the way that I want to love you. And so for me, that's kind of how I was able to start to really shift that energy. And truthfully, I've gained so many gifts from these experiences. I purchased these books before, like, it was like these books before I had had the miscarriage. And it was like Cosmic Bonds, Spirit Babies, all of these things. And of course, when it had happened, the miscarriage, I was, of course, then guided by what felt like the universe, my angels and guides to, after I moved that energy, open those books. There's information in there for you that you have to find that's going to bring you so much more peace. And so for me, it was like, oh my God, like, and I felt full body chills realizing like this miscarriage happened because this was the baby's choice. This was her choice. She wanted a different body, a different timeline. She was working off some things on her side, and it had nothing to do with whether my body was messed up or any of these stories that we love to tell ourselves and love hate to tell ourselves. And I realized now I'm so much more connected to her on this spiritual realm. I know that she's coming back. I'm positive she's coming back, and it's coming back at the divine time. and it's going to be like make it that much sweeter. And what I think was so powerful about being able to move that energy is I realized she left behind a book and an app and all of these like gifts that were like coming online that I was
Gosh.
like, oh my God, if I had suppressed this, I never would have been able to activate all of this wisdom that she left behind.
Wow. This is so profound. So you're going to make me cry. Stop it. Like, I'm not going to get emotional during this. No, I'm not going to.
Move the energy. Move the energy. This is good.
But I mean, it's so beyond me. It's beyond emotional intelligence. It's a different realm. Like, was there anger that you had to deal with?
hmm Oh, yeah. I was screaming at God for a while there, where I was just like dropping the F bomb, like, why? Why again? Just so angry. And there was a lot of fear in that second pregnancy, too. I
Mhm.
have a baby who's here Earthside. So I've had now 3 pregnancies, but there was a lot of fear leading up to it, too, where I was like waiting for the blood and just being like, oh, God, is this going to happen again? And then it did. And there was a lot of fear. There was a lot of anger. There was so much sadness. There was all of it. But what is so profound about letting myself go to the depths of those is that I have reached new levels of joy and gratitude and spiritual connection that I would not have had if I hadn't gone to the depths that I let myself go.
Wow. So if I know a few women who have gone through traumatic experiences like this, and it's been a few years,
Mhm.
and they try to cope, but it just comes out. There's too much pain.
Mhm.
And I also know a few women who lost their children, either in adulthood to a variety of things or in infancy. So if there is one or two pieces of advice that you can give, what would you say?
So it's multifaceted because I don't think that it's ever a one size fits all piece of that's coming through, but it's multifaceted, which I think above all else, what I would the thing that gave me the most peace was realizing another soul's timeline is 100% theirs. So they choose to come into this lifetime for 2 days,
Mm.
for 3 weeks in utero, for 10 years of this life experience, for 22 years in this life experience, because their soul came here to learn, to evolve, to receive whatever it is that they desire to receive in this lifetime. And that was their choice. And so to really honor their soul by saying, I know that that was your choice. Now, that's a very strange thing to think about because our ego and the human part of us is like, I don't want that to take away from the grief and the tragedy that it's feeling that they may be feeling into too, and the tragedy of having miscarriages as well. But what gave me so much peace was realizing from the farthest and the highest perspective, we're all souls having a human experience. And so they're choosing into, I want to be here for 22 years, even if it feels like it was an accident or it was something else that was so random that it's hard for us to wrap our brains around. We have these soul contracts that say, I'd actually like to go out this way. And we don't think about it from a human perspective. We think about it from the highest soul perspective. And so that's what I think is like so interesting about these experiences is that also when a soul decides to leave the body, it's by choice, first and foremost, the soul choice, not the ego, not the human part of us, it's the soul. And then the second part is it brings more and more compassion into those families, into the spaces it happened. So, from the highest perspective, I think it's important to know that. Now, individually, the grief that a person may be experiencing, that is something that I 10 out of 10 could not recommend more finding a healer or a coach or a therapist or a space where you can just let your grief out because there is no rhyme or reason to it. It will be different for you in every moment and every day and every minute. And I really would encourage you to just honor whatever is coming through for you, no matter what, and not make it right or wrong. Like, I think that's one of the biggest things is we think, oh, I have to grieve for a year before I can move on. But here's the thing, being shattered and being grateful can coexist. And so that's something that was coming through really powerfully is like, we are multi-dimensional human beings. We have so many different facets of us. And the people that have moved on to the other side, the souls that have moved on to the other side, they don't want us to sit in our sadness forever. They want us to be here to live, to experience the joy and the beauty and the grief, and our souls evolve when we let ourselves feel those things. And so I think it's so important to just let yourself feel. And there is so much peace in sometimes knowing what's actually happening, potentially, at least that's my truth in this moment, on a spiritual level and on a soul level. And that's just brought me so much peace.
Wow, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Was there a moment in your life, a specific moment or several moments where you knew that you're a healer?
Mm. It's such a good question. I was kind of always that person that like ended up being the safe place for people to land. Like I feel like that when I was growing up, a lot of people would just come to me with their problems or just like feel like they could just say anything and that it would be received and not judged. And so I guess on like a soul level, yes, I'm so grateful that I was able to always hold those spaces for people. But I will say that's kind of that evolution of your purpose that I was kind of alluding to earlier, where I started my business on the side being a life coach, and I still am a coach. Absolutely. I love to be able to support in that way, ask great questions, get people to really find the depths of their answer and look at it from different perspectives. But it evolved as I evolved. So I started being like, you know what? I'm really interested in Reiki. Like there's something about that that just interests me. I'm curious. And so I started actually collecting, if you will, or remembering all these modalities that I had inside of me when I started honoring what I really wanted to do in that moment. And then just kept following the breadcrumbs of being like, okay, now this is leading me to this. Now I'm a little more interested in this. Oh, now I'm a little more interested in this. And so when I just let myself follow what felt good in the moment, that's when it started to become actually a part of what I'm able to bring into my sessions is like, it's not just asking great questions, it's about actually moving the energy and about going into the Akashic records and using these really powerful modalities that allow us to move the energy so that it's not just an intellectual process, but it's actually a soul process and a body process and a heart-centered process. So I think that's been really interesting is starting to see how I evolved and actually brought that into my practice. So in this business, I will say I started it maybe 6 or 7 years ago, but it's evolved into a healer's experience too. Maybe in the last 3, 4 years or whatever that's been, as I've gained more and more modalities just by curiosity and by seeing how well they work too.
I find it fascinating how you are so open about so many different things and you're very comfortable, it seems. And one of the things that you do, which I could never do, I would never arrive there. I will never in a million years. You do get ready with me, which is to show up on camera, have the shovel dress as it gets, and then you just put yourself together while talking to people.
Mhm.
Something that Jen Gottlieb does as well, and I really enjoyed. But how did you master the courage to do that? And you go from 0 to 47 and whatever. And while you're actually so mindful and you're answering like really difficult questions so eloquently, and you go from again from the people see you as you are.
Yeah.
You're beautiful in every way, but I I can't I can't see myself do that ever. Like I guess my self-esteem, I teach self-esteem, but my self-esteem is not that high. So how do you do this? And how did you arrive there? What moved you? And how are you experiencing it now? And what are the gifts that you're getting from it?
Yeah. So one thing that was coming through just as you were saying that first is we teach the things that we desire sometimes most within ourselves. So it makes so much sense that you're like, I teach this because I'm studying it because I want to utilize more of it. So I think that's something to just to mirror back to you. It makes so much sense why you're teaching it because you study it and because you're like, I desire more of this and I'm going to bring more of that into my space. And because I study it, it allows me to give that to someone else too. So I think that's what makes you so powerful at teaching that is because you study it and because you're utilizing that more and more in your daily life. And because you've had that experience of being like, I've struggled with this in the past, you can meet people where they're at too. I think that's what makes it so beautiful, that human connection of being like, I get it. I also move through that. And here's what helps me move through it even more. So that was just coming through really powerfully for you too, is like, of course you're teaching that because it's like one of your superpowers that you're leaning into because you're amplifying that energy even more by choosing to study it, which I think is so fun. Yeah. So that's the first part.
Yeah. How do you allow yourself to be vulnerable? Like, I mean, I'm sure it took a lot of, and it takes a lot of courage to just go into that space where you're so vulnerable and yet you're so powerful at the same time. And you're so honest and you're so candid. And yet I would be like developing rashes all over if I were doing that.
Yeah. Like, how am I channeling with one eyebrow on? Like, yeah, I
Exactly.
get it. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm like doing my makeup. I have one eyebrow on and I'm like channeling and answering questions. And then I forget to do the other eyebrow and then it's done. So, yeah, to your point, I think for me, honestly, I've done a lot of work around my body. Like, I used to have a severe eating disorder in college. And so that was something that I had to really move through, was falling back in love with the soul that I am and really honoring the vessel that I dropped into.
Wow.
And so I see this body as something that I honor more than I look at it and pick it apart like I used to. Like, for me, I really have fallen so deeply in love with my body. And I think part of what actually had me do that was being pregnant with my first son and being like, oh my God, this body makes eyeballs. Like, this body makes toenails. Like, what's happening? You know what I mean? Like, there's so much more at play here. And I just
Yeah.
really want to honor this vessel of being like, whoa, I'm making an eyeball today. Like, what's happening? And so for me, that actually had me fall so much more deeply in love with my body.
Wow.
And I realized, I was like, you know what? I'm already getting ready in the morning. And like, for me at the time, I was like, I don't even really like getting ready in the morning. It's just kind of a thing that I do. And so I was like, what would make this more fun? And for me, connecting with people, like the people that show up in that space, you showing up in that space makes it so much more fun. I feel like I'm getting ready with like best friends in like my bathroom. And so for me, it actually turned into this really fun experience where it was like less about like me and what I was looking like and more about like, how can I make this experience fun and maybe remember to color in both eyebrows at the same time, or maybe not, but like just letting myself channel and like be in joy. And so that to me has like, it's honestly a testament to all the work that I've done and the healing work I've done specifically around my body as well, of just really honoring where I was at in all of the seasons, understanding what made me such a perfectionist in the past with my body, and then moving through all of those seasons of really like shifting the old stories and being like, is that one working for me? Like the one where I look at myself in the mirror and hate myself? No. Okay, where's that coming from? Can I uproot that? Can I shift it? Can I start to really connect into what would feel better right now? And so I do think it's a big testament to like actually falling in love with myself through uprooting and healing all the things that had me feel like I couldn't.
Want to go back to the body image
Mhm.
and self-love, but I do want to mention it on the record that you do something so crazy and so fun and so I haven't seen anyone do it. You go live and you talk about serious issues and you put on crazy wigs. So you like I I'm like, I should really doing this. It's so fascinating because it's like you put humor into it. So you keep people engaged, but
Yeah.
there's silliness. They're like really healthy silliness about it.
Yeah.
And I keep listening to the message and I also smile. So it's like you do both. It's incredible. I haven't seen anyone do it. So just kudos to you. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
But going back to the body, I think a lot of us, especially women, don't really love our bodies.
Mm.
Like if like the hips are too big, or my daughter now, she'll hate me for saying this, but she's like, she's like, oh, my nose is too. I'm
Mhm.
like, you are perfect.
Mhm.
And she's 13, she's just 13, and she's already having, these issues. And I think as we grow older, we have more issues because our bodies change and maybe not in the best possible way as perceived by us or by society or both. So where do you start?
Mm.
What's your advice? Not where you started. You can talk about that too, but where do you start? So you went through an eating disorder to something where you're in the complete beautiful connection with your body now. When you listen, and you just admire it. And like, where do you start for
Mhm.
any woman right now who's not really in love with her body?
Yes. The way that I would start is understanding where those stories are coming from. So, for instance, like if I, like for me, it was like understanding, okay, why? Because it's not the eating disorder, it's not the food. Like, what is it underneath that that's having me do this experience? Because I was bulimic and anorexic. And so it was like, okay, what am I trying to, where is this really coming from? And it was really helpful to have a life coach at that time because for me, it had me be a lot more accountable, especially with the bulimia. It had me be a lot more accountable to myself of being like, I'm not going to throw up this week. Let me have a good A plus report card because I was like perfectionist, wanted the A plus. So that was a way that I started is having someone who asked me really powerful questions so that I could find the deeper meaning behind why I was even doing it in the first place. And a lot of that comes from childhood, right? Or these different moments where we feel like we have to be perfect to be loved, or we want to control something because something's out of control. So I'm going to control my weight. And so that feels like something I can tangibly control. And oh, by the way, if it gets me more loved, then it's a win-win, right? And then it was like, well, wait a minute, is this really a win-win? Because now I'm being totally secretive. I'm like hating my body. There's so much that I'm just like spending so much of my precious, beautiful energy on, which is using it for destruction versus like building. And so for me, it really was starting to get clarity on where did that come from and leaning into healers that could help me move the stories. So that would be a good place to start is to start to ask yourself questions about like, because it didn't just land here. Like we're born whole
course.
and feeling completely worthy of everything. Like we literally come out of the womb and we're like, yes, it makes total sense that you clean my ass and feed me. Like, of course it does. Like, I'm not questioning whether or not you're going to wipe my ass. Like, you should just do it, But then we get older and we're like, oh, no, 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 don't do that. Like, no, I got it, and we make up all these stories. And I think it's because of what we're being fed around us, whether it's teachers, parents, friends, society. And so it's getting really clear on what are the stories that I'm telling myself? Where did they originate? And let me uproot those and release those and start to fill myself with what's actually true.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Something that I've been actually saying to anyone I know since I watched your live, and I want to say it was like in November.
Mhm.
We met in the course in November. So you did this live, and it was very short, but you did something, you said something, and I've been hearing it all over ever since. You said, in order to go faster, you need to slow down. And
Mm.
I thought it was just brilliant.
Mm.
And how do we slow down?
Yeah. So I think that comes to kind of what I had mentioned before, a couple different ways. So noticing where you're just simply running or your mind is on overdrive, the way that I start to slow down is through meditation is a really powerful tool. I also do tapping as well. So if my mind is on overdrive, I actually let the thoughts play out while I'm tapping. Because what tapping is doing is it's calming the meridians in your body so that your body calms down and
Can
you're
you
honoring the
explain the
thought.
concept to those who are not familiar?
Sure. Yeah. So what you're doing is you're essentially going to be tapping in different areas in the body. And you could literally YouTube emotional freedom technique or tapping and watch someone walk you through it. There's some really good YouTube videos out there. And what you're doing is you're tapping on different areas of your body. And there are these different energy meridians. And what it's doing is it's bringing peace and calm into that area. And so what it's calming your nervous system. But while you're tapping, you're just going to let your brain and all your thoughts run its course. So if you're feeling really anxious about maybe being a mother or feeling really anxious about, let's say, the money coming in, like if you're an entrepreneur and you're worried about money coming in, you let all those thoughts play its course while you're tapping in different areas. So you may be tapping on the eyebrow and being like, holy shit, is this client going to pay me? Oh my God, I'm so bad at this. Why did I sign up for this? You're just going to be like letting your thoughts run its course while calming the body. So what you're doing is you're honoring the thought and saying it's okay to be here. Let me start to move it though, while your body begins to calm so that the mind can catch up. And so I find that to be a really powerful technique is I'm letting myself be seen and heard, but I'm calming my nervous system at the same time. And so at some point, I begin to notice the thoughts begin to subside and I'm actually starting to be left with the truth where I'm like, okay, it's really not that big of a deal. Even if this client doesn't pay, I know that there's another one that's coming because that always happens. da, 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 da. And then all of a sudden, your thoughts are calm, just like your body. So that's a really powerful way to calm the mind and to slow down. So that's a really beautiful one. Meditating, of course, is a really powerful one because you're just releasing everything else. And honestly, it's connecting you back into source. Like you're releasing being plugged into everything that's around you so that you can plug back into your divineness. And so that is going to raise your frequency. It's going to heal your body. It's going to allow you to be more tapped into your intuition. So suddenly those little moments that say turn here or go to this event get a little bit louder because you're creating spaciousness in your day for those to start to land throughout the day.
Beautiful. I know I keep saying it. I'll be watching. I'll be like, you say beautiful all the time, but I don't. It's what I'm talking to you. So that's the effect you have on people.
I love it.
Um,
Amazing.
I think
Beautiful.
just yeah, to wrap it up, our amazing conversation, and I hope we'll keep conversing.
Yes.
What is, if there is one or two or three or five things that you really enjoy, you really get good energy from in your work or in your life, what would those things be? And how do you assess it? How do you how do you know?
Okay. So I love this question because I always use my body to tell me what's in alignment with my soul. So, like, for instance, something will happen and you'll feel either expanded energy. So, in your heart space, or it'll feel like some fluttering, like some of the like butterflies, or it'll just feel like, oh my God, I'm in so much flow. And I feel like I'm just like space, like spaciousness is all around me. Like it feels like you're expanded. So that's kind of one of the ways versus the other way where it manifests is like where it's feeling constricted in your chest or your stomach is kind of feeling like it's in knots. That's an indication that your energy has come inward and that there's something that's out of alignment with what you're doing or the timing that you're doing it. And so for me, I always use my body as a way of knowing like what's having me enjoy, what's in soul alignment, because it'll feel really expansive. So one of those ways is with my son. Like when I'm playing with my son, I feel so lit up. Like I'm like a child again. I feel like my aura is just so bright and I just lose complete track of time. Like me and him just laugh. We just have like the best time, like doing silly things. Like yesterday, he was like wanting me to chase him around with a leaf blower and just like blow him with a leaf blower. And he's like, "More," like, okay, so just moments like that where I just find myself in so much joy. And so that's one of the ways that I find myself in joy. I know for me, singing, like when I was younger, it was always singing. And then when I'm just like letting myself just sing, I have so much fun doing that. And meditating, I always find like, now believe me, I have like a love hate relationship with meditating. Like I feel like a lot of people do, where I will like not do it for a while. And then I do it and I'm like, why don't I do this every day? This felt so good. I feel like I'm connected into source. Like I'm so calm. And so meditating for me is something that I'm practicing bringing in more and more, but it absolutely expands my energy because it's like I'm plugging back into where I came from, like from a soul level. So that one's really amazing. And channeling is something that I absolutely love to do. And I learned how to redo because it's like we are born being able to kind of like connect to the other side, but we learn like, oh, that's not appropriate. That's your imagination. Shut that down. And for me, it was like when I learned how to reopen that up, where it's like, I want to connect to my soul, or I want to connect with my guides, or I want to connect with, ancestors on the other side. That's a really high vibrational experience too, because I'm receiving answers about where to focus my energy from the spiritual realm. So it's not my ego anymore. It's coming directly from my highest self or from people that are souls, beings that are tapped into something that's so much bigger than I can even comprehend through the human mind.
I'm going to say it again. Beautiful.
I love it. And putting on a wig. That brings me joy.
Christina, this was absolutely wonderful. I hope we do it again.
We will.
I know that so many people will absolutely love this and reach out to you. So where can they find you?
Sure. I play. Thank you. First of all, just thank you for having me on. This was so much fun. I absolutely love co-creating with you because your energy is so pure. You're so excited about all of this stuff. You're building so much too, and it just feels so much fun to play with you. So just thank you for holding this space, for inviting me on. And like, I can't wait to see what else we create together because it's just so much fun. So thank you so much for asking really powerful questions too, because you got me thinking about things in a brand new way as well. So thank you so much you're so talented at this, just like holding that space and asking really beautiful, deep questions that allowed me to access even deeper parts of myself. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Christina.
Yeah, it's
So,
true.
well, yeah, in all the people will see all of your. I will add it into the show notes. But if you just want to give maybe your website, or what's the best way to find you?
Yeah.
What's the,
So
what's the funnest way to find you?
yeah, Instagram for sure, because that's where I'm wearing my wigs. And that's where I have my one eyebrow colored in when I'm channeling. So find me on Instagram. My handle is I am Christina Deering, and you can actually find me everywhere at I am Christina Deering on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram as well. But those are the places where I play. I also have my own podcast called You Unlimited, which is so much fun. A place where I channel and bring in some really powerful guests that just share their incredible knowledge about how they built 6, 7, 8-figure businesses. And we just reverse engineer it. And we're like, give us the goods. Like, tell us where you failed and how you got through it versus like, don't tell me all the whimsical stuff. Like, tell me how to break through like these big limiting beliefs. So, all places that I play, I would absolutely love to connect with you. So, reach out, shoot me a DM if you end up landing there. I would love to know how you found me.
Thank you so much, Christina. And I know we'll be talking again. Thank you for all those beautiful words that you said. Again, beautiful. I will count the number of times I said it throughout.
Let's make it up.
I will put it in.
Yes.
So
Okay. Let's make it a
yeah.
hydrating game. You know how like we used to do drinking games back in the day, or I did? Let's make it a hydrating game. So every time you say beautiful, you have to chug a sip of water.
I like it. Let's do it.
Okay.
And
All right.
I'm inviting everyone who's watching or listening or both to do the same. Because
Yes.
hydration is important. And if you feel even more inspired after all this water, more power to us and to you. So thank you so much, Christina. I cannot wait to keep it going and
Yes.
thriving and
Let's
expanding.
do it. Let's do it. Yeah. Thank you so much. This was so much fun.